I am so happy we're still in Miami.
Yes,
Not
I think so.
Not quite on South Beach. That we'll do later this evening. But I'm here today with Nathan Hatzfeld, and we're going to be talking about blockchain. You know, this confuses me, Nathan, to no end. But
Me too.
Let's help me understand a little bit about who you are and why we're talking today, and how are you going to educate me and our audience on blockchain. Just get closer to the mic a little bit. Thanks.
All right. My name's Nathan. I am a business developer for a layer 1 blockchain called Syscoin. My role tends to be business to business focused. We're a layer 1, which makes us infrastructure. We're open source, so my job is to communicate with protocols and teams, educate them about the infrastructure we offer, and convince them to spend their developer resources on building on us.
All right, so this conversation is heading down in a direction I don't like already.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. But everyone talks about blockchain. They says, hey, blockchain is this, blockchain's going to do that, blockchain's going to do this, and then we're going to talk about protocols, we're going to talk about this and that and everything else. The big challenge of blockchains as we know it today is the UI, UX, and understanding how that all works. So I want you to simplify this a little bit more. When we talk about blockchain, on a general level, I'm grade 7. I'm in grade 7. That's how old I am today. Explain to me what blockchain actually means.
Blockchain is a database, and in traditional databases, there is one node that determines the state of the database. In blockchain, you have a community of nodes that must reach consensus on what the state of the database is. And that is why it is so difficult to build a highly performant blockchain, because anything you do on blockchain must be confirmed and agreed upon by thousands of different nodes. Some people call wallets them wallets. Like anytime someone refers to a wallet, what they're talking about is a node that agrees upon the consensus of the database state.
And that has to be done by all nodes or a majority of the nodes?
That would depend on the style of blockchain. You have in Bitcoin, like the UTXO style blockchain, all nodes must agree. In something like Binance, you have selective validators, which is a far smaller number, like say less than 100 must agree, versus the 20,000 nodes on Bitcoin.
So who then determines the number of nodes that have to validate the data?
So depending on the blockchain itself, this gets complicated. So if you're a node in a blockchain, sometimes it's the community, sometimes it's the developers. Like on Ethereum, for instance, if you want to change how the nodes handle governance, you can put forth what's called an Ethereum improvement proposal. And you write out logically what you want, why you want, what do you think it would accomplish, and then the community will debate it. And if they see enough merit in the idea, they will implement software changes that enforce the governance that is agreed upon.
Let's go to a simple example that everybody knows so that we can put it into context. Currently, today, if I want to buy a house, everything has to go back to the title deed, to the registry, and someone has to verify that. And so I'm assuming that verification is actually a node.
In a sense, you could say that the bank or the title agency are nodes, because what they're doing is they're saying this is true, this is false, and they're creating a state of whatever that title exists in. So blockchain is kind of like a lower level abstraction of that. What you're doing is, I don't want to get in a rant, so did I answer that question?
Okay, so I'm trying to put big things into perspective for our audience because gets very confusing because all of a sudden when you say blockchain, everyone knows the word, they don't really know what it means.
I think for the average person, blockchain right now is really high friction. If you want to interact with the blockchain, it's complicated. I think blockchain as a technology is really immature, and as far as the average person is concerned, it'll eventually reach a point where all that complication is abstracted away, and blockchain exists as a single piece of a technology stack that you are using when you interact with the internet, but you won't really know you're using it.
Yes, and I've heard that is like, hey, as long as it does what I want it to do, don't talk to me about anything else, right?
Yeah.
And so when we look at this, it's interesting, when we had a session and a Linqto Learn session, and we had a poll, and we had 85 of the respondents say to us that their company does not use blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, either they don't know that the company is using blockchain, or they really know that the company isn't using blockchain. With your background and experience in this, we're in the J curve, so to speak. Where are we in the development and progression of utility of blockchain?
I can't really answer that, but I will say I think the two main problems that facing blockchain right now are we have a scalability issue where going back to discussing the database of nodes reaching consensus, that's slow. So how do you build that out to accommodate a billion users making hundreds or thousands of transactions a day each? And so I think that's one problem that is currently being solved. Another issue we have is compliance, where we don't really have regulatory rails for big institutions and companies to come in and start tokenizing real-world assets, which I think is the end game of blockchain, or maybe even the beginning. I think once those pieces are in place, that is going to radically change the landscape, and we'll start seeing things happen pretty quick. But right now, scalability is a really big issue. The group I'm with, the company Syscoin, those are actually two big things we're focused on. We have a really solid layer 1 built out that uses Bitcoin for security, and it gives you an EVM environment to build dApps on. And then we are using layer 2 technologies to build out blockchains that are highly scalable but defer security to the base layer, which is deferring its security to Bitcoin. So I think something people should keep in mind whenever they use any blockchain is there's that classic problem of the scalability trilemma, or just the general blockchain trilemma, where you have scalability, decentralization, and security, and any gain in one area necessitates a recession in the other. So if you want high scalability, you're sacrificing decentralization for it. So Solana, for instance, the way it achieves very high throughput is it only has a single node. There's a group of nodes that exist on Solana, but it selects one node at a time to determine consensus, versus Ethereum, which has dozens of nodes reaching consensus at the same time. Or when you think of Syscoin, Syscoin's really hard to grok. So like the highest level, I can't make it simple, but the highest level explanation of it is it's a full stack modular blockchain. It has every kind of blockchain technology stack in it, built out with a separation of concerns in mind. So there's a UTXO component, there's an EVM component, there's a data availability layer, then there's another roll-up layer which expands infinitely with other blockchains on top of it.
So the question is, who would use Syscoin?
I think right now, this might be a little bit of alpha for your listeners. We have a Optimism rollup that we have a novel data solution It's really similar to proto-dink sharding, if you're familiar with that. In testnet, it's scaled to 7,000 transactions a second, and it's doing about 15 million gas a second. Right now, there's not a lot of apps on it. We're kind of coming out of stealth on this. But as we get apps built on it, it's basically for anyone who wants high speed that doesn't sacrifice any security. Because again, like we derive our security from Bitcoin through something called merged mining. So if you're familiar with Dogecoin is merged mined on Litecoin. So Litecoin miners mine Dogecoin. Well, Bitcoin miners mine Syscoin. And so we're about 40% of the Bitcoin hash rate right now. That puts us a little less than what Ethereum's overall security was before the merge. So, like in my opinion, just as someone who's been doing this I've been in crypto for about 10 years now. I have not found a more elegant, simply designed piece of infrastructure. It is so perfect in design. The layer one is going to be, the focus of the layer one is to essentially just handle rollup data. The rollups are for scaling, and then the layer threes and beyond that are for apps. So the layer one won't even be communicating with the layer threes. The layer one is purely concerned as acting as a court and settlement system that provides security for any assets on chain, and then everything else is derived from that.
So, if you were to think of a company that would be able to utilize Syscoin's infrastructure that people would recognize, who would that be?
I think one of the best use cases for that right now is probably real estate. There's a lot of middlemen in real estate. There's a general lack of transparency. Once the compliancy rails are figured out, and this is something we've been focused on a long time, the onboarding of real-world assets tokenized is going to start happening real quick.
So that all depends on regulatory environment.
I think, you know what's really interesting is, I think decentralization is something people didn't really care about until about a week ago when FTX blew up.
Yeah.
Now it's like, all right, we remember why this is important again. I think the regulatory will is there. There's a lot of the politicians want to make this happen. I think that the initial proof of concepts just need to be built out. And we're talking with several people who we think can make that happen if these deals go through.
And is there going to be a problem with adoption?
In what sense?
So you've built the rails, you've built the blockchain with the nodes, you've built all of this. You go to the real estate environment, or everybody involved with real estate, and I'm assuming that goes everything from title to mortgages to banks, who need to play in this sector to make this thing work. Is there going to be a hesitancy to join and get this thing off the ground?
For sure. I think it's going to happen. You have a market of different companies with different levels of risk tolerance. Some guys are secure in their spot. Some guys are looking for edge and hungry for extra revenue. I think the biggest driver at the end of the day is profit. How much money does it save you? How much easier does it make it to organize your company? I think it'll be very easy to save money by using this database over other companies. And I think once that becomes more well known and proven out, no one ever wants to be the first one to leave the group.
Sure.
But once that first person leaves, then it starts. And I think that's what we're waiting on.
We have to go. Nathan, thank you so much for this. I think what we have to do is a part 2, because I have to dig a little bit deeper into this whole blockchain.
You're the best. You're the best. Probably the best interviewer I've had in a while.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you asked very good questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with? Yes.
I'm sure. Check out Syscoin. I think what we're doing is really cool. That's Syscoin. Follow me on Twitter. I'm Modern Diogenes. ModernDiogenes. It's a little misspelled. Maybe there might be an E in there. And I think macro is really disgusting right now. There's a general lack of hope, but I also want to remind people that the best products are built in bear markets. If you look at the dot-com bubble, when that popped, a lot of people lost a lot of money, and it looked like the internet looked like shit. Like, who would invest in this? But it built out a lot of essential infrastructure that the next wave, the next 10, 20 years built up on. I think that's what's happening right now. We're having a lot of bad players leave the scene. A lot of people who were either incompetent or irresponsible with their companies, instead of just dragging this out for years, it's all gone now. And
Nate,
the serious people are left.
Nate, there you go. You're left with a good message. Take a look at Syscoin. When you have a chance to speak with Nathan, actually speak with him, because he'll explain this a little bit more clearly than we've had time for today, but we'll have him back for part 2 of this to get down, because it is important. I mean, there are things that you can build on this are going to be fascinating.
We're going to have a public testnet here, and I don't want to give a timeline, but I will say it before end of year. I would encourage you guys to come play on it. It's really cool.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.